Alright guys, so today in this video, I'm going to teach you a really cool way you can produce a prediction style card trick. Now, this trick is pretty cool in that there's a few different layers of deception going on here. There's different principles at play that sort of cancel each other out to hide everything that's going on. Impossible to backtrack, and I love this sort of tricks. And so if you do too, then stay tuned for a wonderful effect. Let's get into it. Alright, so what I'll do here, guys, is show you what the effect looks like for a participant. I have nobody here, so I'll pretend like there is, and then after that, I'll teach you exactly how it's done and what I'm doing here, okay? So we start like this. I have a prediction of sorts in this wallet right here, and we're going to try something pretty amazing with some chances and maybe some luck, okay? So what I'll have you do here is cut off a small pile, about this many or so, and put them right there. I'll have you do one more, because maybe if you cut one pile, I could get lucky, and I don't want that for you. So maybe we'll go for two. Cut off another one and put it right there. They do that. And you know what? What the heck? Just for good measure, we'll do three. Three would be totally impossible for anyone to know what these cards are. Now let's take it a step further. I want you to pick up one of these piles. It's up to you. The one you choose is the one we use. Alright, so maybe they go for this one right here. Now let me ask you a question. Is there any way that you or I could have known beforehand that you would choose this particular pile? They would have to say no, obviously. But let's take it a step further. We'll take the top card of your chosen pile right here. Now let me ask you another question. Is there any way you could have known beforehand exactly which card this is? They would have to say no, because nobody could have known that with a shuffled and cut deck. But what if I told you that I knew exactly what you would say? You said no to both questions. Inside my wallet here, I have a written prediction that actually says no right here. See, I knew all along this is my prediction that you would say no. Pretty good trick. But maybe we can take it a step further. Let's take a look at your card. The Queen of Clubs. Now, what if it's possible that I had a certain feeling which pile you'd choose and where you would cut and exactly which card you would cut to, because on this piece of paper that says no, you see, it does not only say that, it says something else on this paper. It actually says the Queen of Clubs. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you do this trick. So this works on a few different principles like I told you beforehand, and one of these principles is called the multiple out principle. Okay, so what I have here is a two-way out wallet, okay? So this is a two-way out wallet, just a Himber wallet or a Z-Fold wallet. You can find it pretty much anywhere at your Magic stores. Alright, so what you want to do here is take two pieces of paper like this, and what you want to do is write the names of two cards in particular on these pieces of paper. Here we have the Seven of Clubs and the Queen of Clubs, just like this. Just two strips of paper cut from an index card, okay? So next what you want to do is you'll notice on these particular cards, the Seven of Clubs and the Queen of Clubs, in the middle here is actually the word no, alright? At the end of the seven and the beginning of the of, same thing with the Queen of Clubs, okay? So it just says no right in the middle. And you want to fold these in such a way to where only the no part of this is visible, just like this, all right? So you want to put these, both of them, inside of your little two-way envelope or wallet, whatever you're using, or just have two different pockets, whatever you want to do, okay? So one goes in here, and the other one goes in the other compartment. So now that you have your pockets or your wallet loaded with your predictions, you just want to remember which one is which, okay? So very important, all right? So maybe like a marking system or something like that. This is actually the Quiver two-way wallet. There's actually two different they look kind of different. Where it says Quiver right here, you can tell which one is which by a little indentation on this, which is a nice touch on this wallet. It's the Modern Z wallet by Patrick Kuhn. Now you want to set your force cards up in such a way where the 7 is on top and the queen is on the bottom, okay? So that way, when the packets are cut, it'll just be in numerical order from your left to right. So 7, queen, and it'll just be a random card, okay? So now why is it a random card? It just gives the illusion of an additional choice. So let's go through what will happen with these cuts and how to do the cuts. So first and foremost, this cutting procedure is an Alan Ackerman idea that he calls the gesture cut packet force. Okay, so what's going to happen here is your queen is on the bottom and your 7 is on top. Now what I do here is I start out by doing an overhand shuffle, chopping off a block from the bottom about a quarter of the deck, right? Or from the top, you got 3/4, right? So now you want to run one card and in-jog that and then shuffle off to the last card. Now, what's happened here is you have the queen on top, and just below the in-jog here, you have the 7. So what's going to happen now is that you will gesture towards the person. You just look right at the in jog like this, and then you say, look, I want you to cut off about this many cards. You lift up right at the in jog, and you gesture about this many cards, right? And so they do. They'll just come over and reach off a packet of cards and put them there. Now you just slap these back on top and have them do it again. This time it's just a free cut. You do nothing. They just cut another pile here. Now at this point, this is the 7, and this is the queen. Pretty cool, pretty good so far, right? Now you have them do one more, and this one won't matter. This is just completely random. Now you say, look, there's no way anybody could have known beforehand how many cards you would cut or what these cards would be, blah, 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 blah. Now you say, let's take it a step further. I want you to just pick up one of these piles. Okay, so already you have the upper hand because, there's 2 out of 3 they can pick. So obviously if they pick the 7 pile or the queen pile, you know exactly what to do. But let's say they choose just a random pile. You can be like, okay, so slap that back on top there, boom. Now pick up one more. Maybe they go for this one, boom, and they're left with 1 pile remaining. And that's how you get down to that if they do choose their random pile. But like I said, obviously, if they choose one of the 2 force piles, you'll know which one it is, so you just have them keep that one. Now you say, look, let me ask you a couple questions. Is there any way either of us could have known beforehand that you would have chosen this particular pile, or how many cards you would have cut off? They would have to say no because nobody could have known that. For real. Now you say, let's take it a step further. Let's take this top card that you've just cut off, and you just put these back on top of there, and you say, look, is there any way you could have known what card this is? Now, it's very important here that you say, is there any way you could have known what this card is? Because sometimes I've experienced this where I ask people that question and say, is there any way I could have known what that card is? And since you are a magician, you're doing a card trick, sometimes they'll say yes. And they'll be like, maybe, because you're sneaky and you might know it, right? So always ask them, is there any way you could have known what that card is? Versus saying, is there any way I could have known what that card is? Because you don't want to mess it up. So after you ask them, is there any way you could have known what this card is? They obviously they had to say no because they won't know what the card is. Now you say, look, maybe I could have known beforehand on my prediction that you would have said no. All right. So look, I knew you'd say no because I have it right here, the word no. I knew you'd say no. So obviously, guys, if they would have chosen the 7, you would just pick it up in reverse and do it that way, and this card would be the 7. You just have to, be mindful of that, okay? So now, like you say, of course, I knew you'd say no. There it is in my prediction. What card did you get? So I ask them to turn their card over, the Queen of Clubs. Now at this point, you say, the Queen of Clubs. And you say, maybe, this prediction is not just the word no. Maybe I had a certain feeling about, where you'd cut and that you would have chosen this particular card out of all the other cards you could have chosen from. And then you do this white ribbon thread, and then you finally reveal that you knew all along that they would pick indeed the Queen of Clubs. So, guys, obviously, there are other ways to have the person end up with these 2 cards. And if you don't want to do the 3 pile thing, just have them do 2 piles. It doesn't really make a difference. I just like the added illusion of, an additional choice, right? So let's say you want to do it a different way. So you could do it like this. The classic reverse deal procedure is self-working. You don't touch the deck, and they do everything. And this is what that looks like. So you have your two force cards on top of the deck this time, and you say you can just shuffle the deck with the make sure they stay on top, and then you ask them to look. We need a random sample of cards from the middle of the deck. All right. Very important you say that. You say we need a random sample of cards from the middle of the deck. So do me a favor, cut about half the cards off, just right there, and they do that. Boom. Just like this. Now, you put that deck aside, and you have them start dealing cards face down into a pile like this until they want to stop. Now, when they do stop, you have them give these additional mix like this, and you have them deal just a few more like this. So it truly is a random sample of cards from the middle of the deck and stop when they want to and put the rest on top. Now at this point, they pick up the pile and you have them, you say, we're going to make this even more random. We're going to randomize them even more, okay? So do me a favor, start dealing cards in the two piles back and forth, just like this. Now, they start doing this and they just stop whenever they run out of cards. Boom, 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 boom. All right, so just you want to keep track of which one is which, and also if at the heat of the moment, you can sometimes lose track of these things, and so maybe if you want to have maybe a little pencil dot or like a marker spot on one of the cards, or maybe just use a marked deck in general, that will help you out a lot. Okay, so now let's just say they choose, you say choose one of the cards or choose one of the piles. They choose that one, slap it on there. The same thing is all the same. They choose the 7. Boom, 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 boom. You're good to go with your trick. You have the 7 of clubs written on your piece of paper, and that is how you do it the other way. So there is one more way you could do this, and it's still a two-way out, and it looks really cool. All right, so this is a good force to use in general, and so if you're still sticking around, you're getting a lot of bonus content here. Okay, so in this one, you want to have both force cards on top of the deck like this. All right, just remembering which one is which. We'll keep the 7 on top just for good measure. Now, this is how this one goes. Say, look, we'll try this. We'll try to get you to pick a random card here, all right? So as I shuffle like this, just say stop anytime you want to, all right? And here all you're doing is a simple slip shuffle, so you have both cards on top of both piles. And the way that works is like this. Of course, you know what a slip shuffle is by now, if you know my videos. So both are on top. You just do a simple slip shuffle. You start an overhand shuffle doing the slip, dragging one card off as you do that. So that way you have a force card on top of both packets here. When they say stop, just put them both down like this. Now at this point, say, you know what? I shuffle the cards, but why don't you shuffle the cards? Now, since both cards are on top of both piles, you have them do a riffle shuffle, and it doesn't matter how they do the shuffle or where this says stop, because one of these cards will indeed end up on top of the deck after they do it, right? So they'll riffle shuffle the cards like this. Doesn't matter how they do it, because by default, one of the cards will end up on top, but it doesn't matter how they do it. It just has to end up like that. Now they'll square them up. Now you simply have them do a cross cut force. You say every time you shuffle, you have to cut, and then they do the cross cut force, and then you just go to your monologue. Ask the questions. I knew you'd say no, and then that's a time delay for you to go into your force and pick the card off, and that's wonderful. And it's a really good way to have a two-way out method of them shuffling, cutting the cards themselves without you having to do anything. So that's the trick, guys. Hope you enjoyed each of the different variations. There's a lot you can do with each of those, not just this trick, but just a lot of tricks in general. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I love you. Bye.